Welcome back to the Charismatic Voice. History can be tough to remember. After all, there is a lot of it. But when a moment in history is recorded by a great songwriter, people are more likely to find a deeper emotional connection to that moment, and that piece of history will endure. I didn't know a thing about the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald until I read the words that Gordon Lightfoot wrote. And now those haunting lyrics are imprinted on my brain. It's time to listen to the music. Let's get to it.
The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they call Gitchagumi. The lake, it is said, never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy. With a load of iron ore, 26,000 tons more than the Edmund Fitzgerald weighed empty. That good ship and true was a bone to be chewed when the gales of November came early.
Wow. I'm really surprised how he's been repeating this same line of melody over and over and over, yet changing the words up like crazy, and really getting every single word clearly through to us. There's a certain catchiness to it, partly because of the repetition, but there's catchiness because I can just understand what he's saying. I'm instantly attracted to the clarity of his voice. Back to the beginning. There's a lot of interesting things going on here. I want to pick this apart.
The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they call Gitchagumi. The lake, it is said, never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy.
It's so interesting how he will linger on consonants that can have a sustained sound through them. So R's, for example, we'll actually call those R-colored vowels. He lingers a lot on N's, on M's. Again, consonants that you can keep a phonation going through. So if I were to do like an M, which is a bilabial consonant, right? That means that my two lips are forming it. If I'm going to sustain it, I would go, right? You can really change the phonation underneath, create all kinds of pitches. But if you had a sound that wasn't sustained, it would be a B if it was voiced, or a P, a P if it was unvoiced. Voiced meaning that there's phonation from the vocal folds underneath. So they go wacka, 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 create a pitch, B. You can actually have a pitch underneath the B. P has no pitch whatsoever. And then the M is sustaining that the whole time. So he is attracted towards these kinds of consonants that have a sustained pitch underneath. And that's part of why he has so much clarity in his sound. He's just channeling all of that energy through different consonants and clear vowels too. Let's go back one more time to around where he starts singing. I think it's here-ish.
The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they call Gitchagumi.
So there's a lot of N's in there that he would linger towards. The sound actually, when you close your mouth for an N, the sound stops coming through the mouth. It's closed down in some way and it goes through the nose. And he has a consistent focus of resonance that is a little on the nasal side. And I think it's partly because he's consistently channeling through so many closed consonants like this.
The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they call Gitchagumi. The lake, it is said, never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy.
There were a ton of R-colored vowels in there. I'm going to go back one more time just so you catch them too, like November or her, lot of
Gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy. With a load of iron ore, 26,000 tons more than the Edmund Fitzgerald weighed empty. That good ship and true was a bone to be chewed when the gales of November came early. The ship was the pride of the American side, coming back from some mill in Wisconsin. As the big freighters go, it was bigger than most, with a crew and good captain well seasoned, concluding some terms with a couple of steel firms when they left fully loaded for Cleveland. Then later that night when the ship's bell rang, could it be the north wind they'd been feeling?
This is so fascinating to me, just listening to the structure, the time signature that was chosen, times when he's choosing to take a rest between various phrases or not. It's really, I like hearing the soundscape too as it's developing and adding more things into it or being drawn further into the story. I'm going to go back. First thing I want to talk about and notice is that we have a time signature underneath that's causing this feeling of swaying on waves. So it's a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or rather, probably a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That triplet feeling underneath is often used when writing music that's associated with water, that's associated with movement like galloping. So the swaying of a cradle is another one that's often associated with. And that makes absolute sense that we put this to a song about a shipwreck. I'm going to talk about the phrasing choices as they come by. I'm going back all the way to the first verse.
Load of iron
Ooh,
me,
a little bit
that
further.
never gives up her dead when the skies of November
That's
turn
enough.
gloomy.
There.
With a load of
So this is so interesting to me. Sometimes between the phrases, we have an extra measure. So like it's just sort of riffing until the voice comes back in. And then I noticed, I think it was the second verse that we didn't have that space or gap between things sort of kind of tumbling into each other, which makes sense because as we start the story, we're just, starting to dip our toes in. We're not quite in the full storm of it yet. So I'll point out where that gap is again, and then I'll point out where it isn't later.
called Gitchagumi.
Here's a gap right here.
The lake, it is said, never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy. With the low
So a lot of times in musical phrasing, we'll have stuff that's kind of blocky, meaning it feels like it's grouped together in 4s or maybe 8s. This phrasing actually is grouped together in 5s in this first verse because you have 4 that are all with a vocal and then you have that space between. So I'm going to go back again and show you where that counting would happen just so you get a sense of that and then see how that changes in a bit.
dead never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy.
Here's the break, which is 5.
With a load of iron ore, 26,000 tons more than the Edmund Fitzgerald weighed
4,
empty.
5.
That good
1,
ship and true was a bone
2,
to be chewed when the gales
3,
of November came
4,
early.
5.
The ship was the pride of the American side, coming back from some mill in Wisconsin. As the big freighters go.
And so there we stopped having that 5th beat right there, or 5th measure, really. It feels like you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then optional 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Except for here, we got rid of that 5th bar.
Back from some mill in Wisconsin.
Went straight into it
As the
here.
big freighters go, it was bigger
Bring us
than
further
most,
into the story.
with a crew and good captain well seasoned, concluding some
Same thing, it
terms
keeps
with
going
a
there
couple
again.
steel firms when they left fully loaded for Cleveland. Then later that night when the ship's bell rang, could it be the north wind they'd been feeling?
So that's a great example of North Wind and Feelin', the way he's going towards the N in both of those. He's not really going towards the D as much. He's going to elongate the N. He doesn't even hold out the vowel before very long, which would be the classical decision, or maybe the, I would say, school book standard. So North Wind instead of North Wind, and then Feelin' instead of Feelin'.
Bell ring. Could it be the north wind they'd been feeling?
Those kinds of choices are very deliberate. That's not something that just happens. A singer might develop it as their style and it might become automatic for them later in the career, but it is a deliberate choice at some point.
The wind in the wires made a tattletale sound and the wave broke over the rail.
I just realized I didn't really miss the drums until this moment. It's been so cool as we've been adding pieces in, and I was surprised when they came in. I was like, oh yeah, they weren't there.
Wires made a tattletale sound and the wave broke over the railing.
Oh, there's that extra bar again.
Every man knew as
Ooh, and was that the wailing of the wind? Is that what's happening?
the tattletale sound and the wave broke over the railing.
Ooh, cool.
And
That's
every
what I call
man
for.
knew as the captain did too, 'twas the witch of November come stealing.
Huh.
The dawn came late and the breakfast had to wait when the gales of November came slashing. When afternoon came, it was freezing rain in the face of a hurricane west wind.
Ooh, that was also really interesting to me right there because he actually rushed the beat just a tiny bit. He's been so in the pocket of the rhythm, just perfectly lining up his consonants to create rhythm. And then right there, he rushed it a little bit.
When afternoon came, it was freezing rain in the face of a hurricane west wind.
On West Wind, it's just a little bit early. Though I will say W's tend to take a little bit longer to get through than other consonants, so they need to be placed a little bit more before the beat so that the vowel can open up on the beat. But that being said, he definitely made that part go faster. And I wonder if it was sort of initiating everybody to go a little faster with him, because that's one way a singer can say, hey, band, I want to speed the tempo up. Or maybe it was specifically to give that sense of disturbance that the west wind was causing. I'm not sure.
November came slashing. When afternoon came, it was freezing rain in the face of a hurricane west wind. When supper time came, the old cook came on deck saying, fellas, it's too rough to feed you. At 7 p.m.
Oh, there's a synthesizer in there that I totally did not expect to be added to it. I think it sounds like swirling wind to me. It's it's so fascinating how this song is hanging out on the same melody all the time. We're just getting layers from the instruments and really just the story from Gordon Lightfoot. There are bits of expression, like that rushing, for example, but mostly his purpose, I think right now, what he's going for is just clarity of lyrics to relate this truly horrendous story to us, to give us a deeper emotional attachment to that moment in history.
Time came, the old cook came on deck saying, fellas, it's too rough to feed you.
There's that synthesizer.
At 7 p.m. a main hatchway caved in. He said, fellas, it's been good to know you. The captain wired in, he had water coming in, and the good ship and crew was in peril. And later that night when his lights went out of sight, came the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
You can really hone in on the way he's using those consonants and singing through them. The L was especially in there for the Fitzgerald. Also, L's and R's are very similar where they color the vowel before, and he leans into that coloration quite a bit there. I think it's so cool to hear how he fits these different syllables of words into this melody that he's constructed. It the way he's lining up the timing of the syllables so that they go with the natural flow of language is really important. A lot of times when songwriters are trying to put language to music, they'll end up stressing unstressed syllables. So, one of the best things to do if you're writing syllables for a song is just speak something and notice which syllables are naturally elongated. And you can tell that this is so natural to Gordon Lightfoot at this point. R.I.P., man. Great, great songwriter.
Was in peril. And later that night, when his lights went out of sight, came the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours?
I love that line. Wow. When the waves turn the minutes to hours. Wow. Wow, that is such a stunning line.
Does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours?
Wow. And I love the delivery of it too. There's so much simplicity in what he's doing and continuity that let us really focus on the lyrics, but there's a tenderness there that he brings into his voice. It's just this little shade, and it's like almost like the questioning of a child. Wow.
Does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours? The searchers all say they'd have made Whitefish Bay if they'd put 15 more miles behind her. They might have split up or they might have capsized. They may have broke deep and took water. And all that remains is the faces and the names of the wives and the sons and the daughters.
Wow. These lyrics are incredible. He's told the story so quickly, the questions surrounding it, but not just delivered as some news facts. Instead, he's really drawing our hearts into it, asking the questions, yes, but saying, hey, we have these faces of the family that are left behind. And that question of the waves and the minutes and the hours, that was really stunning. It just also, I think it might have struck me extra because I've been reading about some survivor stories from the wildfires in Hawaii and people that ran out to the ocean to survive or not survive. It's just honestly pretty horrendous setting that's happening right now. So hearing this and just thinking about the family that remains and how people are able to live on is, I don't know, it's striking me right now. Thank you, patrons. This is a really, really good suggestion, and I'm glad that we get to dive down this one in addition to hear more of Gordon Lightfoot's catalog. Okay, I'm going back a little bit. Gonna keep going.
Split up or they might have capsized. They may have broke deep and took water. And all that remains is the faces and the names of the wives and the sons and the daughters.
The rhymes are good. It's hard to rhyme and not make it feel kind of fake, right? You don't want it to feel like Dr. Seuss, but there's a certain harmony in lyrics when you have rhyming. So he's found just the perfect balance.
Lake Huron rolls, Superior sings in the rooms of her ice water mansion. Old Michigan steams like a young man's dreams. The islands and bays are for sportsmen.
Listen, sportsman again, R colored vowel straight into an in. This is very, very consistent in his singing. Man, there was another descriptive. Was Icewater Mansion in there? I mean, it's so descriptive while still feeling somewhat casual and simple. It's this beautiful songwriter balance.
Lake Huron rolls, Superior sings in the rooms of her ice water mansion. Old Michigan steams like a young man's dreams. The islands and bays are for sportsmen. And farther below, Lake Ontario takes in what Lake Erie can send her. The iron boats go as the mariners all go, with the gales of November remembered.
Huh. I like the way he gave just a little bit more energy in the gales of November was remembered. Yeah, that ended with more energy sent off from the vocal and opened up to an additional oomph from the instrumental section.
The mariners all go, with the gales of November remembered.
Going up automatically gives it more energy.
In a musty old hall in Detroit, they prayed in the Maritime Sailors' Cathedral.
So interesting how there was that extra measure again, and we dropped some of the instrumental down right before he entered. And I'm trying to figure out what was the planning behind having certain moments where we have that extra measure or more space versus not. That seems to me to be the key of where he's adding extra thought or allowing a person's heart to process more or maybe to prepare for the next thing that he's about to relate.
In a musty old hall in Detroit, they prayed in the Maritime Sailors' Cathedral. The church bell chimed till it rang 29 times for each man on the Edmund Fitzgerald.
So I think that extra pause was to give us the space of perhaps the quietness and when you get together in a gathering of grief, there's a certain hush that's there, and there was that hush that happens where the instruments drop. We have that extra time, and then you say, "Here they are, gathered together." The bell rings 29 times for each person that died. I'm gonna go back to that moment. There. Right space.
In a musty old hall in Detroit, they prayed in the Maritime Sailors' Cathedral. The church bell chimed till it rang 29 times for each man on the Edmund Fitzgerald. The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they call Gitchagumi. Superior, they said, never gives up her dead when the gales of November come early.
Makes so much sense for there to be a fade out there, the way that the ship essentially faded out. It's amazing how that melody just keeps on repeating. He sang the same melody the whole time, but shifted the words around within it, really drew our attention to the story, and the combination of space within the song and simplicity, I think, actually allows people to process more grief and more emotion. It's really shocking, actually. I'm very, very surprised at the choice to just keep that same melody the whole time. Whoa. If you guys want to see what I consider to be some more excellent songwriting, I'm going to make you a playlist up over here, and may you fall more in love with music every day.